Hi there, my name is Kay Moon and I'm a Twin Soul Channel and Western astrologer. And this video is about the new moon in Virgo happening on September 6, 2021 at 8:08 p.m. if you happen to be on the eastern seaboard of the United States. This video is for the Twin Soul Collective with an update about Twin Soul energies. And I want to encourage you, if you haven't already watched the Lightworker Energy update for this lunation, to please do so, only because there's a lot of relationship energies that are part of this new moon that are good to be aware of, especially because of the positioning of Venus and Juno during the time of this new moon. So I get into some detail about that. I'll reference it here, but it'll be good for you to take a look at that and understand it more directly from that video. All right. So this new moon occurs here at the 14th degree of Virgo, and it's making aspects to, as I mentioned, Juno, whom we understand as the divine feminine, Uranus, the divine consort of Gaia, and Neptune here, ruler of psyche art, our psychic abilities, art, and waters on the whole, the oceans. So interesting energies going on. The short recap about the way these interplay together is this new moon brings in an amplification of psychic ability, intuitive insight, an increased dedication to our purpose, vision, and mission. With the Juno energy here, there's also a bit of an energy around breaking free in relationships, which we'll cover when we talk about the divine feminine's energy at this lunation more directly. But in addition to that, needing to be very creative about the way relationships move forward from here. So, I really like this new moon specifically because of the way it gives us an opportunity to rise above our shadow by first seeing our shadow. Most often, the shadow is an area that is in a blind spot. We're not able to see the emotional strings that control us and what we do and why we do it. But this new moon in Virgo is going to give us a shot at being able to see it for what it is. So that's an exciting opportunity. I get into details about that in that Lightworker Energy video. Okay, so what we have next, I'm going to get into Juno and Jupiter's specific energy. Let's go ahead and look at those. So we have Juno up here having finished her conversation with the South Node. And this was a conversation that Jupiter experienced last year in February, where there was a movement over the South Node that indicated stuff from past lives, past and this life coming up, needing to get resolved. That would have been at the beginning of last year for divine masculine energies. And it happened this summer for divine feminine energies. And what this gave divine feminine the opportunity to do is have a reclamation of self, reclamation of divinity, reclamation of gifts, many of the gifts coming from past life, reclamation of dreams, hopes, goals, and wishes, and the aspiration of whom she wants to be here on planet Earth. This energy was really in effect, I would say, probably from late spring through end of August. And now that we're into September, this energy is starting to dissipate. Thankfully, she is direct. So some of the hardest parts of this are behind us in our feminine energy templates. We also have divine feminine speaking to Saturn, speaking to Chiron. These can be harder energies for her to be speaking to. However, they're giving divine feminine the opportunity to really look at her triggers and patterns of wounding and to make some new decisions, new structures in her world based on who she wants to be, not who wounded her and how wounded she's been. This has been an opportunity all year long for the divine feminine energy to rise in relationship to her wounding, as opposed to wallow or self-constrict in relationship to her wounding. It has been a hard, long, arduous process, but I trust you all have been doing the work. And this would have pertained to anywhere in our feminine energetic templates where we have felt that we have been wounded, slighted, put down, even castrated in certain ways, made to feel not enough or not powerful in our divine feminine energetic templates. Just as a reminder, divine feminine energy governs our wisdom when it comes to relationships, as opposed to our desires and impulsivity in relationships. Divine feminine energy governs our capacity to be equal partners, as opposed to submissionary partners or partners that come through in lust, or just, in order to, how do I put it? Above or below someone. Our divine feminine energy comes through with an energy of equality. There's also the way divine feminine energy also works. It governs our creatorship and creative abilities as a feminine energy. So a lot of arts, the way we sponsor the arts, etc. This is all under divine feminine energy's purview, creative abilities in that way, flexibility and growth in the world of relationship. This is all divine feminine energy, as opposed to Venusian energy, which is kind of our mundane aspect of our femininity. Okay, so we've had an opportunity to look, no matter what your gender identity is, at the places where we have been wounded pertaining to those particular aspects of who we are. And in the looking, this gives us an opportunity to heal. And in the healing, this gives us the opportunity to rise and to really understand what about us is divine, the fact that we can transmute, the fact that we are not defined by our pain, the fact that we are able to expand and grow. This Chiron aspect and Saturnian aspect gives us the opportunity to become more than our pain, which is such a beautiful gift of 2021. At the beginning of the decade, we have divine feminine energy stepping into true divinity. Okay. So let's see what else was going on for divine feminines. Let me just peek here. We covered the Chiron aspect. We covered the square to the new moon, which is about creative thinking and opportunities for liberation. It's also an opportunity here with this new moon to surrender even more deeply to our connections, which I like a lot. In the surrendering more deeply to our connections, and it's not to the other person. One of the gifts of 2021 was the way that it helped us to make the distinction between the connection and the person themselves. And when we are surrendering to the connection and what the connection is giving us, we're surrendering to the wisdom and the higher operating power that guides our connection and the instruction in love that the connection has brought to us. We're not necessarily surrendering to the other person specifically. And so this square under this new moon gives us an opportunity to just surrender and to recognize that when we stop resisting what is in the connection, how the connection is playing out, when we just let it be, stop fighting it, trying to change it, what we get is an opportunity to reach, as she is sitting inside Sagittarius there, to reach some of our highest goals, reach some of our highest ideals for who we can be when we stop with the ego control and surrender to the spiritual wisdom. Okay. So that's a really cool energy here for our divine feminine energies as twin souls. Spoke about the trine to Chiron and sextile to Saturn, and that's about recognizing what makes divine feminine divine and not just feminine. But then we have this other energy here, which gives us access to our shadow. Oh, the fun's about to begin. Okay, so there's also a little bit of a difficult energy here for divine feminine energies that is bringing forward shadow energy for her to work with at this time. And it's not a bad thing when the shadow stuff comes forward, but it does present a challenge in terms of who are we going to be in the face of our shadow. So what we have here is divine feminine Juno opposing Lilith and Ceres, who are in conjunction down here. And they've been having a conversation for several lunations now, squaring Nessus. Nessus is where we get a bit OCD, clingy, controlling, looping in our thinking and emotions, opposite the new moon here in Virgo. When we put all of this together, especially with Lilith's desire to kind of move things in her own direction and some of her rejection energies, templates, and stories, there can be a manipulative energy going on here on the side of the divine feminine in the connection, where there's an over emotionality, which I talked about in the Lightworker energy update, coming from Neptune opposite the moon. And then that over emotionality then kicks into high gear around, I can't feel this way. I have to do something. I have to do something to feel different. And then there can be a little bit of manipulation energy that peaks for divine feminines inside of this new moon. So I spoke already about the need to just surrender to what the connection is teaching us at this time. And inside of the Lightworker energy update, I spoke about why specifically this new moon lends itself a lot to that manipulation kind of theme. And we're going to get into that more in a moment, but I just wanted to highlight it so that you understood you have a choice. Anxiety will run high. Emotionality with this new moon will run high. Feeling underneath the power of something else will be here. And what we do with that is, and what we have the opportunity to do, is a chance to really rise into our divinity. And it's interesting because it's almost a counterintuitive way to rise. The way to rise is to not resist, but instead to surrender and to let the energy pass through us rather than resist it by trying to control it and make it something different, or make our circumstance with our counterpart something other than what it is at this time. Trying to get your way through this, which I talk about inside of the Lightworker energy update, Pluto Mars trine, trying to strong arm into getting your way at this time will really backfire in several weeks' time when Mercury is retrograde, and then a second time backfire when Venus goes retrograde here in Capricorn at the tail end of the year. So keep that in mind. Okay, so those are all the energies for divine feminines. We're going to see if YouTube wants to show a brief commercial, and then we're going to dig into what's going on the divine masculine side of the energy. There's some interesting new strengthening going on for divine masculine energies. There is some real opportunity for divine masculine energy to rise with this new moon as well. And simultaneously, there is some challenging energy and ways in which there may be soulmate interference at this time. We'll get into it right after this. Thank you so much for taking an opportunity to watch that video. Hopefully YouTube showed one, but if not, no biggie. And let's get into it. So we have divine masculine here represented by Jupiter, having a very direct and specific conversation with Venus. I read Venus as the female soulmate, Mars as the masculine soulmate. And when they are in harmonious position to the divine counterparts, we can see a strengthening with the soulmate bonds with one of the divine counterparts. And in this instance, under this new moon, there can be a strengthening between soulmate to divine masculine energy and divine masculine. This can also represent an enhancement or achievements socially, financially, but in relationships more specifically than anything else, kind of an expansion for divine masculine energies. But as I was saying, mainly, or not mainly, but alternatively, this can be things really locking into place between a divine masculine and a soulmate, either a marriage and or um, maybe the initiation of a new stage in a relationship. And these aren't necessarily bad things. Soulmates frequently partner with the divine counterparts to assist and aid them with carrying the mission of love into other aspects of the world that the divine counterparts can't necessarily access. And sometimes they are there as fantastic co parents. They are there for lessons, growth, and learning for both counterparts as well. So, if this is something that's occurring in your connection at this time, try to greet it with grace and love and look for the lesson in it for you. If you are not necessarily in the active connection between divine masculine and soulmate at this time. Now, the one thing that I do want to mention that is a bit of a challenge with this is the way soulmate energy is positioned, who she's speaking to, and the ways in which this energy, in addition to the other energies inside of the new moon, are really positioning her to do some shadow stuff. And I'll just be more specific. This is really speaking a lot to maybe a little bit of spell work and manipulation on soulmate's behalf to try and bind divine masculine's energy, given the way that he is retrograde, seeking light from within, sourcing his own power from within, as opposed to direct connection with the divine at this time. He's seeking divine internally as opposed to external. With soulmate energy sitting with creation goddess, she's all about manifestation, and Vesta, she's all about dedication. And then sitting in square with Pluto, Pluto's all about the metaphysical, the underworld, secrets as well. And then we have Neptune opposite the new moon. There can be a lot of secret activity here with this whole configuration. This could be a period of time where there could be a bit of that kind of manipulation and spell work to draw divine masculine energy towards soulmate connection. I'm not saying this is always the case, but it's here, so I am making you aware of it. It's a fantastic time after we get toward just past this new moon energy to do spirit release therapy, to clear the connection, clean the connection, ground the connection, so that each counterpart is really operating underneath their own sovereignty and in their own free will. And it's also a bit of a caveat and a warning for divine feminines as well, because divine feminine energy is another aspect of feminine energy. Venus and Juno are aspects of one another in certain ways. It's really important, given the OCD energy here inside of divine feminine templates at this time, to not get carried away with anxiety or worry in your connection, but instead to ground into what is the spiritual truth that's being revealed to me about the current unfoldments? What do I need to know about me? What do I need to know about the connection? And what's the higher level reason for why all things are unfolding in the way they are? Where's my growth and where's my service in this unfoldment? So I invited a special guest to join me for this new moon in Virgo to talk about specifically the way spell work and kind of binding energies and usurping another person's free will can really impact divine connections, because it's important, if we are truly operating in love, to allow other people to be in their direct connection to source, to not try and bind their connection to us or bind them to us so that they can serve the light in the way that they've come here to serve the light. So my special guest today is Charlotte from Happy Twins 1111. And if you guys aren't familiar with her, she runs a phenomenal channeled message and tarot channel at Happy Twins 1111. You can find her at happysouls1111.com. She does wonderful classes on Reiki and energy work and healing, and provides wonderful services as well. I will link her below the video so you can find her if you'd like to know more. But Charlotte, I recall you telling me about a time when doing spirit release therapy, you saw some really interesting things around spell work and the impact that would have made inside of a twin soul connection. Can you talk to us about that?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for inviting me on as your guest. It's such a pleasure to be with you. It comes up a lot in spirit release therapy when we're clearing people. So the first thing I want to say, if you're a divine feminine that has dabbled with magic and then with the intention of bringing your counterpart closer or strengthening the bond, there's no shame or judgment there. I think it's quite a common thing that the divine feminine collective moves towards when they're in that chasing energy. But it isn't supportive of your connection. And I think the most important thing to recognize about that the act of trying to use magic to control a situation is the opposite of surrender. It comes from a place of ego and fear, a desire to control and get what you want. And that is the opposite of surrender. It's the opposite of being aligned with the path that's meant for you in this moment. So it's actually doing the opposite of what you're intending. It's essentially distorting the connection and exacerbating any imbalances that are there, and it's keeping you more firmly rooted in that chasing energy. So it's just not a productive thing to do, and it actually can be quite dangerous. I think the incident you're referring to, Kay, was the divine masculine that was split in two, and what occurred in that situation. And the client, it was a very awkward conversation with them retrospectively, but the client was very humble and able to kind of confirm what myself and Made for Love had found in this particular case. But just to give you an idea of how destructive these kind of practices can be to your twin flame connection, in this instance, both the divine feminine and the karmic partner had tried to bind the divine masculine to themselves. And a binding magic is intended to attach somebody to you and keep them attached to you. It's very manipulative, and it's interfering with someone's free will. So it's really not what we would call productive or white or light magic anyway. Twin flame connection and all the distortions it creates aside, binding someone is pretty dark. It's not a healthy thing to be doing. In this case, because two people had tried to bind this divine masculine to themselves, what we discovered when we went in to clear him was that his inner etheric was literally split in half. It was torn down the center where it was being pulled in two different directions. And this would have been incredibly challenging, unpleasant, and difficult for the divine masculine who was, being manipulated this way. And it wasn't an easy thing for us to clear and repair. Now, the divine feminine, as I said, when we discussed this with her, she was very upset with herself and happy to discuss it with us and was able to confirm our findings. But it took some time to repair that and to bring the divine masculine back to a healthy place. So she learned a pretty harsh lesson there. And, I hope that anyone listening to this can pay attention and apply the necessary caution based on that. But that's just one example. Unfortunately, we do see it a lot. We see a lot of divine feminines and karmics interfering, trying to get what they want from the divine masculine, trying to keep them attached. Now, what's really important to bear in mind here is that as a divine feminine, you already have an eternal bond with your counterpart. There is no need to bind them. They couldn't be any more bound to you. They already share an energy field. They share a soul with you. And so it's completely unnecessary to do any magic within the connection. The only magic you need to focus on is yourself. You know, your time is much better applied in, if you want to use magic, manifesting a healthier, balanced, more harmonious state of being, so that you can move towards surrender, which is ultimately what will eventually lead you to what you want, which is love. It's not union, it's love. We think we want union, but what we really yearn for is the powerful, loving connection. And that's available to us, not necessarily through physical union, but it's available to us through the act of surrender. So take a deep breath and trust you're going to get what you want, but you have to focus on yourself. You know, applying magic is not only destructive potentially for your person and the connection, but it's also not good for you. You know, it's holding you back. I hope that helps. I do think it's an important topic, and I'm really glad you brought it up. And I feel that at the moment. It was really interesting when I was listening to you, Kay, and you were talking about these rejection wounds being triggered again, and a lot of divine feminines facing the shadow aspects again. I think that was incredibly accurate for what I'm experiencing and also hearing within the community. It was spookily accurate for me, but a lot of us that may feel that we've taken big leaps forward in, you know, previous months or years, are suddenly finding ourselves cycling back through those old rejection wounds which we thought we had healed. And it's not the case that we haven't healed them. We're being asked to review them now from this more grown perspective, and it's hard to find yourself back there experiencing all of that rejection pain again and those shadow aspects. And in those moments, you know, a lot of divine feminines can turn to magic. Desperate times call for desperate measures. Don't do it. You know, focus the magic on yourself and on cultivating that harmonious state of being that's putting you back in a good place.
I love it. Thank you so much, Charlotte, for being here and for sharing that perspective from an energy worker's experience. Because it's just, you know, when I look at it from what the perspective of what you're saying, let's just say best case scenario, you know, what you want is, you know, love and union with that particular person. When they are double bound or bound, it just slows down the path of the divine will that was meant to play out, because the path of the divine will always win in the end anyway. But if we are interfering and slowing it down and creating this detour to make it go a different direction than the direction it's meant to automatically flow in, we just slow our own process down. And worst case scenario, in the circumstance like you were explaining, it can just bring things to a complete halt. If someone is bound in two different directions, they can't move forward, can't move back, and then on top of it are exposed to entities and energies that like to feed off of manipulation and control energies. So thank you for sharing that and for being here for this. I covered even in more depth how and why this particular new moon brings this particular type of energy forward. It's uncommon. Most new moons don't really have this particular feature to it, but it is extremely loud in this particular new moon. So it seemed right to have someone who's an expert at having these things removed and healed to be here. So if you are looking for further guidance on these things, or looking for a clearing for you and your counterpart, you can find a link to Charlotte's information below this video. Charlotte, do you have availability within your team, or should I link somewhere else for now?
Yes, we do right now, but I'm happy for you to link all the other girls in this community. That there aren't enough spirit release therapists, and it's really important that anyone wanting a clearing, goes to a spirit release therapist that they feel that resonance with, that they feel drawn to. So if you want to include links for Pink Healing and Erin and Aditi and the other girls, please do. I think, you know, the more options we have, the more opportunities our audience has to review those options and see where they're resonating, the better. You know, not every medium is going to be compatible with your energy, so trust your own instincts. And, you know, review all the options. I think that's super important. One thing I do want to add, if you have done magic on your counterpart, whether it's binding or something else, and you're not sure how to undo it, a clearing can do that for you. As I said, there's no shame, there's no judgment, there's no blame. You won't be the first person to have done stuff like this. And I think it's also important to be aware that this manipulative kind of energy, this controlling energy that's moving through the collective right now, is not just DFs targeting DMs. You know, this could be other people in your zone of awareness experiencing similar energies. And I've certainly seen in recent weeks an uplift in the number of people feeling like they're experiencing psychic attack. So, you know, it is a time to be cautious, to be more diligent with your grounding and protection. And certainly if you have engaged in any magic of a dark or controlling or manipulative nature, which is low vibrational, I would definitely recommend, you know, that you take steps to raise your vibration and focus on restoring your integrity. It's never a healthy thing to do for you, for anyone involved, but we're here to help if you need assistance.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So I'll link Charlotte's information below, as well as some other resources for you. And I'll just say, you know, it's not always common that when we have a lunation, that one counterpart is more so the focal point of the magic than the other. But this particular lunation has made divine masculine energy, and we all have both, more so the focal point. So even if you don't resonate in the polarity of divine masculine, but you're just noticing in your own masculine energy of productivity, providing, kind of that capacity to protect yourself, wanting to protect others, if you're noticing a depression in your energy levels, it's important that if you are noticing those kind of things, definitely always check your health with a new moon like this, because Virgo does represent health. But in addition to that, check your spiritual health as well. Give yourself the opportunity and the gift to get cleared. Okay, so here is the final step here. We have Jupiter speaking in square to Uranus, which is bringing a lot of insights to divine masculine energies as well. A lot of new perspectives, shifts in their material world, especially the way their money is working, the way they are working to make money, the ways in which they are operating with, you know, their value set, starting to come to a place of valuing who they are, their own divinity in a completely new way. And that was kind of on schedule for this year, a big step up in leadership capacity for divine masculine energies. So if you're feeling yourself in a place where you're like, oh man, like that's not me, that could be a symptom of a bit of a spiritual flu there, psychic attack. So it would be a good idea to just get cleared. All right, Charlotte, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate having you.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate being here. And can I just say, I appreciate you so much. And I know the community will agree with me wholeheartedly, but the way you so eloquently bring our attention to these astrological shifts, it's so affirming, Kay. It's like 1,000 pennies dropping at once, being, oh my God, yes, it's that, you know. And I think everyone feels that when they watch your videos, and to know what to expect as well, and that sneak preview into what's coming as well as what's happening, it's so valuable. So thank you.
My pleasure, and my pleasure to read for all of you as well. As I mentioned, the September calendar is open. So if you're feeling really guided to check in on the astrological energies for yourself between now and the end of the year, we've got a Mercury retrograde coming, a Venus retrograde coming. This is a great time to do it. You can find me over at kmoonastro.com. I would love to read for you. Thanks so much, everyone, for liking, watching, subscribing, and sharing. If you heard something that resonated for you, I invite you to subscribe. Take great care and bye for now.